Hi, and welcome to LinkedIn Studio in Cannes. I'm Milka Privodanova, VP of Large Customer International. Think about how your buyers found you 5 years ago. Search, click, download. A clear trail of signs you can follow. But now, that trail is disappearing. AI search is rewriting the playbook. 94% of B2B buyers are now using AI to find their shortlist. So they get to the shortlist of vendors without ever visiting a brand's website. Today, we're joined by two fantastic leaders who are navigating this zero-click era. So first of all, welcome, and thank you for being here today. So let's start with an introduction. Who you are, what you do, and one thing that has shifted the most in how your buyers found you. So Luis, let's start with you.
So I work for HP, printers and computers, and I run what we call go-to-market marketing, which is basically everything but brand. And the way the shift is happening is a tectonic shift, right? Because especially in areas which are very much consumer-driven, like supply sales or printers, because I do both commercial and consumer, we can see how our strategy has been very much focused on SEM and SEO, which is the traditional playbook, and how this is shifting is huge, but also on the B2B side of the house. Now, what's interesting is a statistic from you guys as well, is that yes, the vast majority of the people looked into LLMs to understand what to buy, but if the LLM contradicts what they want, they will still keep on asking until they get the answer they want to hear, which is very interesting. But we'll talk about this later on how this is changing our 4P and also the way we approach customers.
Brilliant.
Awesome. I'm Prachi Gaur. I am the CMO of Asana, and my mandate at Asana is marketing, brand, and communications. For us, just like he said, the playbook of search is disrupted. You know, we don't have the clicks, we don't have the user journeys that we had previously. And AI search is really forcing us to think about content and advocacy and voice, external voices about our brand very, very differently than we did before. I think the fundamental concept of, trusted voices doesn't change, but how we elevate that and how we bring that into our marketing and brand efforts is very, very different in the new playbook. So excited to have this conversation.
Brilliant. I mean, you already touched on some of the topics we'll cover, hopefully, during this conversation, such an exciting time. But let's start with, how are AI search and LLM changing the way B2B buyers find and evaluate brands? Luis, maybe we'll start with you. You started talking about that.
Well, so as I said before, B2B purchases are complicated, right? And yes, indeed, people look for data, and they even click on the sources on how the data was built, try to back their beliefs. So the biggest learning and the biggest insight for me is how this content, how this gathering of information of the LLM is coming from. And it's primarily coming from third parties. So it's not about what we say, what we post on the web, or what we pay for. It's third-party content of others that they are talking about you in different forums, LinkedIn being one of them, Reddit, press. So LLMs are basically gathering all that information and getting it through, right? So the game is not anymore trying to push your value proposition with content direct to the customer, but also, and even more important, get third parties to talk about you in a positive way so that the LLM can capture this content and start basically backing their beliefs that they're making the right choice with you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think very, very similar. I talk about this concept of user-generated content. It has always been important, more so now. LLMs are trusting that, leveraging it. And so in our world at Asana, we have 200,000 customers. There are fans. We have an advocacy, group. We have community. They talk within the forum, but how do we open the doors and have them talk on LinkedIn or Reddit or on YouTube, submit videos? So we have to become a platform, essentially, as a brand for user-generated content about you being out there that is in their authentic voice. So I think the type of, that one is changing. I think the second thing I'll say is the type of content that we produce for search versus AI search is going to be significantly different, and it is. it's a ton of deep use case specific content because we have to answer the query that is very detailed versus in the beginning it was just kind of like, which is the best, I don't know, platform, like whatever. And you had, we are, of course, but we had the 4 answers, and so it's like a pretty, set playbook. Today, it's much more detailed. Like for my very nuanced use case in manufacturing, for this campaign type, blah, 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 what suits me best. And so the type of content, if you are putting out as a brand or through your users, has to be answering that query. So that is one other fundamental shift that we've seen. And then, video versus written content, we do see that being picked up quite a bit by LLMs as well. So it is reauthoring a playbook for the new world, like really.
And Prashant, we'll continue with you like as a follow-up question. In this zero-click environment, what makes a brand more visible, more trusted?
I mean, I think the trust element doesn't change from before. The trust comes from your product actually delivering value, and that can be felt in terms of, in our world trials, like people get to try Asana before you buy. So we do have people coming in, inviting their teams, loving the product, and then upgrading. But also peer reviews about the product. So the trust element doesn't change if your product's delivering value, that will show up. The visibility changes significantly. We had, as marketers, a lot more control on how to be visible and where to show up, whether paid or organic or many different ways. That is changing drastically. And so, two levers that we are playing up as a team. One is the investment in what I call brand, and that is not just awareness campaigns, that is one part of it, but how do you bring along your entire customer, partner, ecosystem to do the types of things that we did in a limited way through media, through speaking engagements, through events, through traditional playbooks that are now suddenly re-energized. So visibility through those avenues is increasing. And then we already talked about the platforms like LinkedIn and Reddit that definitely drive higher visibility for brands if we invest in the right ways.
Luis, your point of view?
I was thinking about trust as in a different angle, which is because AI can fake everything. When you become a trusted brand, the ability for you to be credible in the market increases, right? And trust is very hard to get, and it takes years and years. So investing in trust, and again, to your point, how the customers are answering to you is super important. I fully agree with you. But the trust game, if it was important before, to be the designated driver is like gonna be more important than ever.
Agreed.
And actually, Luis, I'll come to you next, because you actually touched on the point of credibility. One of the things we're hearing more and more from CMOs in our research, credibility is becoming more important than a polished brand message. Do you see that? And how do you think marketers should respond to that change?
It's funny because we come from a different angle. I'll tell you why. We're a company that is the most trusted by definition. And most trusted sometimes tends to become boring. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to still retain the trust, but still be a little bit more aggressive or more fun on the tonality, right?
Yeah.
So our marketeers, which is a difference to many other companies, is like, yes, we earned the trust over the last 80 years, right? But now how do we evolve the brand into something which is meaningful to nowadays? Right. So it's my specific case, but I understand everybody else will give a different answer on how you evolve trust into something or how you become a trusted from somewhere else. What
are some of the things you do to make the brand more fun while trusted?
We try, so first of all, we need to anchor on the root of what we are, right? We are primarily a commercial brand, meaning we sell to B2B customers. So when people come to us talking about the future of life and the future of gaming, which happens internally in the company, it's like, no. We need to keep the path on the right way. And then what we try to do is to be provocative. We sell to IT decision makers, and we try to make sure they understand their role on how they contribute to the employee performance and therefore to the company performance, right? But we try to do this in a provocative way, like, hey, realize that IT is not just delivering stuff for people or solving tickets. It's more about how do you empower people to be in a different place. And that again, it's B2B, it's kind of serious, but we try to be a little bit beyond the boring, this is a PC and, has, I don't know how many MPUs, whatever.
Yeah. Prachi?
Yeah, I mean, brand credibility is getting so important, to your point. And for us, polished messaging is still important. I wouldn't completely throw it away, because when you first engaged with a brand or an ad or something, you want to get in a nutshell what you are about. I think the big change I see is only relying on that. There was a world where you could come up with a positioning. It lasted for 2, 3, 4, I don't know how many ever years. You kind of kept saying the same thing. And even if you didn't have a ton of depth in the content, in the point of view, in the value delivery, could work, it was okay, but the depth of your point of view, of the content, of what you deliver is extremely critical, and putting that out there is important. So I think that will build credibility. I think the other piece that really is important to drive credibility today is because, I touched on this, but in a fast-paced, innovative AI world, gone are the days where people are like, oh, I'm just going to blindly sign a big check without POCs or POIs or trials. So we are seeing more and more credibility being built through try before you buy, especially when they're coming with a shortlist already identified. The best way to to get to that trust is through the trial. So those are our two avenues of driving instant, or not even instant, but credibility. There's no instant. It takes years and time to build the trust, but the value delivery and the deep understanding of the persona, the pain, the problems that we can uniquely solve for them, and putting it out there for them to consume is important.
Brilliant. And one of the things you talk about is the value of user-generated content, the importance of peers, trusted voices, creators, and how that shapes and changes the decision-making. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, in a place where you have so much content being produced by brands, and AI is making it even easier, the output is so much higher of AI content. The real voice that is standing out amongst our buyers, and we've seen that in our research, is what is someone similar to me saying, more so peers, but also third-party analysts and things. It's what is the real experience they've had? So that content was always useful. It's even more to help brands stand out in the noise of just content production. But the fun thing about this is the AI engines, LLMs, find that exact same content credible. So the more user-generated content you have out there, the higher your ranking, I guess, in an AI search for that query. And so investing in user-generated content has dual impact for any brand. One is the trust, the credibility amongst the buyer, but it's also trusted by the LLM, which is the beauty of it.
I wanted to add to this. I think to me the biggest unlock over the last year is the old model. You had a business issue, you had a customer insight, you created a campaign, you did paid media, and then you did the search, and then you closed the campaign. That was the traditional. The biggest tectonic shift that we have seen is not about the paid media anymore, it's about the earned media. And that's what you are describing. You start by still business issue, customer insight, but then you go and try to generate content from third parties.
Yeah.
It's not your own creativity pushed through paid media, it's the creativity of others, right? Paid with their own media, if you want.
Yeah.
Then paid media can come to amplify, but in a much later stage.
Yeah.
And this changes the way we operate as marketeers. This changes the way agencies operate. This changes the way media houses operate. I think it's huge what we are seeing at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think the hardest part of all of this, if you've lived, in the old playbook, is the measurement. It was, the very linear funnel was so much easier to measure. We had all the clicks, we had all the data. That is the new, reality to grapple with. It is important to make the investment. How do you show the ROI?
So how do you approach it? I'm curious.
I think two things. It depends on the channel. Where we can try and collect similar data, we do to influence. We do some holdouts. of like tactics, strategies to segregate and see it's like the holdout group performing worse than everything else. And then a lot of correlation. So it's like running multiple campaigns, experiments over time that'll drive some correlated data and triangulate to it. But it's not an easy one. Like, I haven't solved it for sure. We are working
nobody
through
did.
it.
Right, Liz, I'm going to go to you next. Any best practices for marketing leaders looking to directly to use and deploy AI LLM strategies across their teams?
Okay, so my number one is you are not competing against your competition. You are competing against everything else. And because we spoke about going earn first. So you try to be relevant, but you are not competing in relevancy with your direct competitors. You are competing with the latest news in Iran or in Ukraine or the Trump administration or the UK change of prime minister. These are the news that are being absorbed by the people. So how do you become relevant in that cultural moment is what you need to define with your creative teams, right? So I think my number one is if you want to be in a good position on earn and how others are talking about you, influencers, press, anybody who's going to generate content that the LLMs are going to pick up is how do you compete with the current environment with something that is truly relevant? Because if we talk about ourselves versus the competition, we couldn't be more boring. So that would be my number one.
All right.
My guidance and like best practice is the pace of change, even with what LLMs are, anchoring on what they're using to rank someone up or down is changing rapidly. So be on top of it, like whatever tools you use, whether in-house or bot, stay on top of what is driving the recommendation engine behind the LLMs, because just a few months ago it was Reddit, today it could be LinkedIn, tomorrow. It's like YouTube at one point was so important, but it changes every few months, I would say maybe even weeks. And so that is just very different for our teams to like be on top of it and shift and pivot strategies. So it's like, oh, you can't have an 18-month plan for a Reddit strategy, for instance. Like, yeah, it's important, but you have to be on top of whatever else is the latest with LLMs because they are moving very, very fast.
As leaders, like as you as individual leaders, how do you stay on top of it? Like share some tips.
Yeah, I think peers, honestly, I'm part of so many different peer groups and we discuss this regularly, and like getting insights and learning from them is probably one of the best ways. I have my kind of go-to podcasts and other media, LinkedIn for sure, where I'm tracking what is happening in the market. And then we have our own teams and tools to trust and let them run, the business. But ideation, what I've heard, people are doing this, is like my job to take that. Finding time to do it has been my playbook. So it's like I'm a coffee person. I have coffee in the morning, and like I save that time to just like stay up to date on what I've heard, just like make mental notes, and then the team's doing their bit too.
I was thinking about my leadership team because I don't know if it happens to you, but you're in a meeting and they're prompting and saying, hey, I ask if I want to go on vacation with my kid to France, which laptop should I buy? And it says the competition. It's like, really? That's the crash. So the push to understand how he got there and why the LLM is answering is what is forcing us kind of to be on the latest. And yeah, LinkedIn is a great source because you do a lot of in-depth analysis, peers. I have a lot of connections with others to see what's going on, but you must be able to answer those questions.
Yeah, I don't think we've, in our, like at least in my career so far, I've never been as intense, as fast changing as it is today. And so let me ask you, in this period that we're in, that we're seeing such a massive transformation, we just talked about rewriting playbooks, like what's the thing that excites you the most? And what's the thing that you think will change meaningfully in the next 12 months?
Everything is going to change meaningfully in the next 12 months. I think that excites me the most. The fact that we get to innovate, we are on our toes, learning new things, experimenting. It's I'm a builder at heart, and this is my playground. So I am excited by that, and the innovation is, forcing us to think differently about a lot of things, but in some ways just go back to the basics. It's like, what does a buyer care about? What are they moved by? It hasn't changed really that much, at all, actually. So how do you speak to that buyer and their pain in the most credible and interesting way that you can, while transforming every other marketing strategy and tactic that we've known, is exciting. I think keeping up is hard, but exciting.
Liz?
For me, the most positive is we need to think on creating content that is going to be so relevant, people are going to love to talk about this without paying them, right? Mm-hmm. That's the upside. And I also see a threat, by the way, which is how the job of the marketeers is changing and how they're going to be, many of them, frustrated because what they used to do and what they like to do is going to be done by a machine, right? So that evolution is going to burn out a lot of people on the way, and I think we need to be very careful with those. So there is also a downside to...
And how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage that with your teams? Like, again, what tips would you give?
I think it's gonna, so it's not like from day to night, it's a different job. It is an evolution. And I think being open about this and explaining that this is really happening and seeing how people, they need to evolve and training them to do something else, and especially being open in a daily basis, like, hey, this is changing again, and that's what it is. But I know many people are going to be not happy with this, and many people may end up leaving as well, for sure.
Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar. We do this kind of in our monthly team all hands, we do a lot of show and tell of like examples of what people have automated that has created time and what they have done with the time. It's like, that's inspiring. Like, yes, the automation stories are great, but what did you do with that time? And so my guidance to my team is like, this is the future. And so you have to let go of what you've known and let the machine do the work for the work, the other mundane stuff, and like think about what you would do with that time back. And each one of, like, I got into marketing for, I know, lots of varied reasons that I now have time to actually think and be able to do and automate other portions. So those are our ways, but I think you, at every individual level, you only get to the aha if you experience it.
Yeah.
And so, my guidance to my team is like, try.
There is a statistic that everybody uses. It's all about 80% nowadays, right? So 80% of the people are not happy with the job, they're frustrated, and AI is contributing to that big time. So I like what you said, because there is also another statistic that says when you do what you are trained for and you are not wasting your time in mundane tasks, you are more engaged. So how do you transform the people into this direction is critical.
I think it's a really interesting shift. I mean, I personally, share with our team all the things I'm learning and I'm doing and dedicating time. And it's like there's something very exciting about being almost like a student again, like a learner. When you have to say, I don't know, and then somebody helps you, and it's fascinating. Like, I'm a bit like, I like to play with the tools. It's so exciting. But I also agree that there is a bit of a change curve that probably we're going to go through. All right, we are in Cannes. So what is the thing that you're most excited about this week? Any big takeaways? I know it's only day 2, but anything you're taking away so far?
Yeah, I mean, we did our my first panel this morning, and what was so encouraging about that is how, it was about media agencies and brand and how we are all thinking differently about the future in terms of outcomes versus input. So we were talking about the hours spent, and it was like media model, agency model is hours, how much, and it's all going to be about the outcome. And at the end of the day, as marketers, we are growth officers. Like, our mandate is to drive growth, which is the outcome. And so we were all triangulate towards, driving growth. So I was excited by that.
So my biggest unlock over the last 3 days, I'm here since Sunday, is we were in a big group, about 100 CMOs, right? And then the speaker said, okay, how many of you spend 50% of more time with your team? I think about half the people raised the hand. And then he said 30%, and I started to see less hands, right? And then said 20%. And I felt guilty, so I raised my hand because I know I'm spending less time than that. So at the end, it was like, if you are spending more than 5% with your team, you are not doing your job.
Wow.
The learning was, if you are in such a major transformation and you are not spending time with your stakeholders and with your peers aligning them, explaining them. That's not working because you are supposed to have a self-sufficient team that is running by itself. Therefore, your time needs to be spent with other people. And it was like, okay, so maybe I was maybe 15, not 20, but now I know I need to spend even less time.
Oh, wow.
So I hope they're not going to see this in my team because they're already complaining, like they feel abandoned.
All right, and just really to close us off, so we talked about all the exciting things, like what keeps you up at night?
Measurement, I talked about it. It's like we are going to change our playbook, invest in many different ways. The outcome is not instantaneous. Like we will drive growth, but it'll come a few. How do we continue to justify the investment and even more investment in things like brand and advocacy and community and earned media is something that we haven't solved yet.
So in my case, we're sponsoring Ferrari, and there are many races happening now. We had Monte Carlo, Barcelona, now it's coming the UK. So I spent the last month here, which means if I want to see Spain playing soccer football, I need to stay awake in the middle of the night. That's what keeps me awake.
All right, well, I hope you have a great week here, and I'm sure we're going to spend more time together. And for all of you, that was all from us for this morning. Thank you for being with us and watching us LinkedIn Studio. We can.